Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing very well. Please don't be put off by the childish drawing. Stick with it. Today's valued viewer request is from Leslie Hubert. Love your vids, guys. Thank you. Question: is a stealth or sneak attack possible from below, coming up from low altitude, hopefully with some ground masking ? For example, enemy aircraft flying at angels 10 or above using ground masking, one might be able to come up steeply from below for a short range missile shot. Of course, I realise not all aircraft in DCS are capable of this tactic. Right, so, first of all, the aircraft that is searching, the aircraft that is going to be shot down. Let's make it a modern aircraft, look down, shoot down, pulse Doppler radar. That's this guy here and this guy here. Next, he says that flying at angels 10 or above, so I think just about everyone out there would agree that his tactical altitude is going to be somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 feet above mean sea level. And to keep this test relatively simple, we're going to assume that the ground is at sea level. So first of all, the most simple situation, we've got flat land. The guy that is sneaking to do the quote stealth belly attack will be flying along the terrain as low as he possibly can. Now it's very likely that this guy here will not see this guy in here simply because his radar is not aimed down. A radar in a modern aircraft has very limited power, and so you can only scan a relatively small sector of sky at one time. Red lines that I've shown to simulate where this guy is scanning in terms of elevation. If he had his radar aimed roughly at the horizon, like the average player would, then it would be normal for him to have a radar coverage of about 8 to 14 degrees, a segment of the size that we've got there, maybe slightly bigger. And so you can see he can only scan a small portion of the sky in terms of elevation. In terms of azimuth, from a top-down view, he could scan very wide. If he had his radar antenna just pointing at the horizon, it would be quite normal for this guy to be able to sneak under his radar scan coverage and then pop up for a belly attack. It's a very normal thing to do and a very normal thing to happen. If you go and jump in a generic BVR modern aircraft server, you'll find it relatively easy if you find a relatively novice guy up here just to sneak under here. He won't bother moving his radar down. This is called radar sleeving, to aim the radar down to look for low moving targets. Now, if this guy here is a bit more advanced player, it's very normal for him to do radar sleeving. That is, the majority of the time, he's going to scan the horizon for threats with, kind of 6 or 7 degrees up, 6 or 7 degrees down. But he knows that these ground lurkers, usually flankers and fulcrums, could be slipping through the net. And so every now and then, every few seconds, he'll sleeve his radar down in terms of elevation to scan the ground here. And it will pick this guy up if that happens. A pulse Doppler radar can pick anything up in terms of altitude, even if it's 5 feet off the deck, as long as this guy here is moving towards this guy here relative to the ground, which of course it will be because this guy is moving forward. Now this guy here, the attacker, will have his radar off because he's making it a stealth attack. He does not want to alert this guy here with radar emissions. If this guy is emitting any kind of radiation, this guy will pick it up here on his passive RWR and will know not necessarily the altitude of this guy, but it will know the azimuth of this guy. And that will alert him that there may be a ground lurker down here, and then he will sleeve his radar down. So, radar emissions off, EO on if he's got it. A flanker or a fulcrum, for instance, will have an electro-optical system, which is basically going to detect the heat of this guy here, or his Mark 1 eyeball if he doesn't have an EOS system. Remember that this guy will be emitting radiation, and so this guy will always be able to track the azimuth of this guy. Today, we, the valid viewers, are this guy here. Next, if we add a bit of ground undulation in, if we go into the Caucasus and we have not necessarily mountains, but more foothills, or it could be mountains, I guess, then things become a little more complicated. If we've got an intelligent guy up here who will be sleeving down every 10 seconds or so to check for baddies, then whenever this guy here enters a trough or a low piece of terrain, because terrain is always going to be randomized, it's never going to be perfect for this guy. We can't hide in the shadow all the time. We have to pop up over hills and stuff like that. Then the defender will see the attacker whenever it pops up over a hill, but it will be very patchy coverage. So what this guy will see as every time we pop up is a blip will appear and then the blip will go. A brick will appear and a brick will go. And that may be enough to fool this guy into not taking enough notice of this guy. An experienced attacker here will realise if this guy is blipping in and out that he is down at low level moving through terrain. An inexperienced guy who sees this guy blipping in and out may think, okay, well, it's nothing to worry about. Note also that this will probably affect AWACS, which is a much more powerful radar and higher elevation coverage, just as much. So what we're saying here is that with undulating terrain, it's going to help this guy a little more. Again, if this guy is extremely experienced, then he will know what this guy is up to, and this guy will take avoiding action or aggressive action or whatever he needs to do. If any of the scenarios happen that allow this guy to get through, then simply the attack will be when this guy decides the defender is in the right position. It's never directly below. That won't work. You have to pull up when this guy is actually ahead, because if you pull up when this guy is 90 degrees above you, you'll never actually catch this guy up. And you've got three options, I guess. You can engage in ACMs, you can go in a dogfight and shoot him down with guns if you're a Sabre or a MiG-15, or you can fire an IR missile, which would be great because you don't have to turn your radar on, or you can turn your radar on. There's no point of hiding at the point of firing this missile. I mean, you can if you want, but you can turn the radar on and fire a radar-guided missile, and there's pretty much nothing this guy can do at that point. He will die every time. The question I'm posing is, in the absolute worst-case scenario for this guy here, in that there is no undulating terrain to hide behind, and this guy is an experienced defender who is going to sleeve the radar down and look for this guy actively low on the ground, is there a way that this guy can still get through undetected? Well, let's think of ways that we can try and do that. For instance, what if this guy could fly very slowly? Would that be enough to put him in the notch filter of that radar? Or what if this guy flew very low, vegan low, 5 feet off the ground? Is that enough to put enough ground clutter in there to overcome a modern pulse Doppler radar? Probably not, but let's go and give it a try. What if this was a plane of a relatively low radar cross-section? Let's put an F-22 stealth fighter in there. Would that fool the radar enough to think, okay, it's ground clutter or it's just not there? And the guys on the stream have just thought of a good idea, which is to kind of semi-notch, to go in a zigzag. If we're kind of semi-notching that radar, can we do it down low so that, again, we'll put ourselves in the notch filter of that radar? You can go and have a go with that. For the experiment, we'll keep it as scientific as we can. This guy will travel at probably an average altitude of, let's say, 25,000 feet. It's not super high, it's not super low, it's somewhere in between where you just find your average F-16. In terms of what we can expect, I have not got the foggiest. Ozzy, any thoughts?
I think the radar is really good, so it's going to be difficult other than objects in front to block it.
Yeah, but we're not doing that in this case because it becomes becomes very unscientific. If you're looking at terrain, how do you know what I mean? How do you measure the terrain? And
right.
And I was going to use an F-16 as the guy that's going to be defending. It's just got a decent, easy to use radar. Any objections with that?
No.
Welcome in. First, just a control test, just to see if I travel at an average speed at low altitude that RC can pick me up there at Angels 25 plus. Are you ready, RC?
I've slewed down.
Yep.
I'm looking between 17 and minus 29,000.
Yeah, it's pretty some too far away. We'll get close. Just keep an eye on it. I'm about.
Here you are.
There
Okay,
I am.
gotcha.
Get minus 2T on me.
Hold on. There we go.
Yep, and that's that. And that's it. The closer we get, the easier it's going to be for you to see me. There's not much else to say. AMRAAM comes down in the face. I'm dead. Next test. Repeat everything. This time, I'm going to go as low as I possibly can, scraping my little intake on the ground. And let's see if that can fool your radar. Otherwise, everything will stay the same. 3, 2, 1, go.
Alright.
40 feet.
Ready to pick you up.
30 feet. 20 feet. 10 feet.
Gotcha.
You got me. Lock me then. Prove it.
Yep.
How about that?
There you go.
How about that? Wow, look at that. And I'm even. I'm scraping my belly on the ground. Right. And that is because, valued viewers, the pulse Doppler radar, because of its pulse Doppler effect, can filter out all of that ground. No problem at all. So it can pick up something at any altitude. And we know that because of tests with the Org 9. It was picking up buses and stuff like that on the ground. Altitude makes no difference to it. Okay, I'll see. Let's retest. This time it's going to be speed. What if we go really slow? Can we get in what we call the notch filter of the pulse Doppler radar of the Defender. So all pulse Doppler radars will have a notch filter. There has to be a speed differential between the ground and the object that's moving in relation to the aircraft that's up in the sky. There has to be a threshold at which, below that threshold, it'll filter it out as background noise. Okay? Hence the idea radar notching, flying a beam to the radar. And if you're above that threshold, it will pick it up as a moving target, an aeroplane. The same effect will work with an air-to-ground radar, picking up a tank or something like that. But the threshold, rather than being 50 knots or 100 knots, will be more like 5 knots or 7 knots or something like that. We didn't want to go stupidly slow, like a biplane or something, because then it wouldn't be able to intercept the F-16. But this, something like this, a Lima 39, can go relatively slow, but it can also have sidewinders or whatever, and pull up and shoot the F-16 down. Are you ready, RC? Radar cross-section of this is pretty much about the same as the Viper, I'd imagine. So RCS is about the same. 80 knots. Good chance I can get in the notch filter here. No, she's falling out the sky now. 70 knots and I'm dying. Oh, glass. Had a small error, RC. You carry on going. I'm just going to get back here. That's interesting, valued viewers. I would have thought you'd pick me up by now. Wow, look at that angle of attack. Look at that angle of attack.
We are 41 miles.
Right, we should be picking me up soon, so this is interesting.
I gotcha.
Ah, dang it. Well, I can't really fly any slower.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Alright, scratch that. And that is what was expected, guys, because the notch filter is usually, on various jets, what I've heard is about 30 to 50 knots, because at that point you can filter out, like, you know, buses and cars and stuff like that. But I was doing about, I could go about down to 80 knots, which is about 90 miles an hour. So
just lost you though.
Let's see if we can fool the pulse Doppler radar with a small RCS. This is a Christian Eagle. It has a very small RCS compared with, well, just about anything. So if this doesn't work, we'll go to an even smaller RCS with a stealth fighter. Out of interest, if anyone knows the RCS of a Christian Eagle, that would be quite useful in terms of, I think it's meters squared, something along those lines. From 180 miles an hour, that is about 160 knots-ish. Because of my small RCS, it will mean that he'll pick me up not as far away, because the larger the RCS, the further away he'll see me.
Gotcha.
Oh, you got me. I'm going to pause it there just to measure that distance. Purely out of interest, the RCS of a Christian Eagle 2, whatever that was, 34 miles for that particular radar. We are now in a 5th gen stealth fighter, an F-22, a Raptor, which has stealth modelled into it. So its radar cross-section is very low. Now, disclaimer, obviously stealth is not measured massively accurately in DCS. It is a civilian simulator, but it is roughly measured. And we've done several experiments to show that it is what we would consider probably not too far off the ball. So I'm now going to go at relatively low altitude, medium speed. My prediction is I'm going to get very close before his radar picks me up. Therefore, the angle of his radar will have to be very low down like that, almost looking straight down. But just do it normally first of all and see if you can pick me up in a normal configuration. When we talk about radar sleeving, that is literally what you tend to do in the scanning aircraft, is to allow the radar to whiz left and right, then you sleeve the radar down, left and right, sleeve the radar down, left and right, sleeve the radar down, left and right. It's not perfectly accurate, but that's the rough idea of how you would sleeve a radar.
I'm looking for you.
Yep, not going to be easy this one. Out of interest, I haven't actually seen you yet. Are you conning? I'm guessing you are. Let me go and have a look.
No.
Yes,
oh yeah, I am.
Right, I should be able to see RC if he's conning. If he wasn't conning, I wouldn't be able to see him. There would be no way I could see him. But I would be able to see him if I had an EO IRST system, like a flanker, for instance. That would allow me to spot his engine heat.
Stealth conning.
I did just see you. There, I see you. You see you just above the 27 is where he is. So that's how I would judge when to pull up. And the valid viewers just said you can pick up a stealth at about 8 miles, but remember that that range is dynamic. It will be affected by all sorts of things: speed, the depression of his radar, the altitude, me in relation to him, all sorts of things. So it is dynamic.
Right.
Hey, got
Gotcha.
me. Stop. So you picked me up at 7.32 miles. So at that point, I mean, you were presumably sleeving aggressively there, right? You know, aiming that antenna right down. So there's a very good chance, I would say, that Raptor, if you didn't know I was down there, I would say there's probably an almost 100% chance that Raptor could get through. Because RC's got his radar sleeve down. Look at the angle he's having to sleeve down. I don't know if I can kind of... He is there.
Yeah, way down on the scale.
So that's probably about 50 degrees down. It's very rare you'd actually put your radar down that much. And as you knew there was someone right below you. Technically, according to the test, no, it has not fooled the pulse Doppler radar. That pulse Doppler radar has picked it up at an orthographic range of about 7 miles. A slant range of, I don't know, I'm guessing 10 miles or something, do a bit of Pythagoras or something. In reality, unless RC really was much lower or knew that I was down here, I reckon probably that I was going to get through. Let's just try some other things just for fun. Let's try notching. So I'm going to snake, rather than going towards him, I'm going to snake left and right and left and right and left and right and left and right. So I'm always going to appear in RC's notch filter. So my mean heading has to be 270. So that means I can turn port to 180 and then starboard to north. Oh, it was just south and north, isn't it? South, north, south, north. Now the problem with this, of course, I would have to be a super skilled pilot to do this, which I'm not, as you're probably aware. I would have to be constantly looking over my shoulder to find him, which is hard enough going straight towards him. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it for 10 seconds. Now I've got to do right for north for 20 seconds. The more accurate I get to the polar coordinate, the more accurate I'm going to get in his notch filter. 20 seconds south. When I make the turn, I will pop out of his notch filter and he will be able to see me in making the turn. But again, if it's just a sporadic blip on his radar, you know, there's a good chance it won't be effective for him. Can I check your heading 090? Or thereabouts?
Yeah.
Okay.
089 to be exact,
yeah.
But close enough.
What an interesting experiment this is, actually.
Still looking for you.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Everything about what we're doing is very unkind for RC's radar, valued viewers. The radar is not designed to pick this up. So I see.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, keep trying to track me. Leave that STT on.
Oh, I've got it on. Lost you.
It's cat and mouse at this point, valued viewers. Because bear in mind, he's not just looking for me. He's looking for the whole situational picture in a warfare context, and that might be enough to sneak me through. But we'll keep going, see how far it goes. Because I'll just appear as a little blip when he's sleeving down, and then I'll suddenly disappear, and he's like, was that a false return? What was that?
You narrow my bar, or no, I've got it.
Yeah. If I was doing a really specific search, I would narrow those bars. I'll narrow everything down, but again...
I have been. It's just,
yeah.
With you going back and forth, it's harder.
Yes, it is. It's very hard.
nothing. My dish is way down now.
It is. Not sure where the elevation bump stops are on that thing.
I just got a spike from you.
Missiles away.
Yeah, I'm not getting
How
you
about
at
that?
all. And
That
I've got
was-
my ditch now all the way down.
I hate to say that, but that was brilliant. So you got me for how many seconds, do you think?
Probably about 10 seconds.
Roger. And he was really, you know, he focused all his energy on me. I would say on an average sleeving session during an average mission, I would say that would have made me basically invisible. However, nearly, haha, look, to fly like that tactically is not very easy. You know what I mean? I mean, imagine doing that with undulations and other threats in the air. You know, I'm not sure you can consider that really a tactical use or something they'd ever do in real life, but it's interesting. Just a couple of other things I'll see. People want to see if your pulse Doppler radar, air-to-air radar, can pick me up on the ground while moving. I'm on a runway, I'm over 100 knots, I'm out of your pulse, I'm out of your notch filter, but can he pick me up? Can he pick up, with his pulse Doppler air-to-air radar, me on the ground going past faster than the notch filter? That'd be interesting. I'll see you come towards me and do what you've been doing. Okay, it's just hitting 35 now. Off I go. So, want to get out of the notch filter, but stay on the ground, which should be interesting. 60 knots, 70 knots, 80 knots. Okay, we're out of the notch filter now. 100 knots. RWR going on for the valued viewers. Bit fast. My RWI isn't picking you up, which is a bit weird.
Oh, that's odd.
Yeah, it is a bit. Anyway, if you see me yet,
No.
I'll tell you when I rotate. I can see you. Okay, I'm going to rotate now.
Alright.
Airborne.
Gotcha.
Is that, yeah, so a couple of seconds, maybe 5 seconds of leading.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is pretty obvious. When I'm on the ground, it's coded for an air radar not to see me. Now, that doesn't happen like that in real life, I'm pretty sure. I'm 99% sure that a real pulse Doppler radar will pick me up even up on the ground, because it doesn't actually know how high I am in relation to the ground. I don't think. I may have that wrong, but I don't think it does. And that will lead to questions like, okay, can an air-to-ground radar pick me up? That'll be for another day, though. That's not in today. So that's just how it is. Anything you want to add to that, RC?
Nope.
Your best chance, as we found out, is A, using a stealth aircraft and getting as close as you can, or doing that funny Z notching, which works pretty much perfectly, but it's just very difficult to do. I hope you enjoyed it and see you later.